Hey guys, Shanna Cramer here with Creatively Uncorked. This is a nice little tutorial for our wood signs. All of the wood signs are built basically the same, so I just have a little mini here to show you how the technique is done. If you've ordered your art kit from Creatively Uncorked, you will probably have wood, a stencil, probably some sandpaper, a brush of some sort, some paint, some wedge sponges, and I'll show you how to get started. So on your wood sign, first you want to choose the better side of the wood. If you have a larger sign that has the hanging hardware on the back, chances are we've already done that for you. You'll take your sandpaper, just sand it a little bit. You can thoroughly sand it if you choose to. I would rather just take a little bit of the edge off just so I can avoid getting any kind of slivers. Okay, so when you're happy with the smoothness of the wood, we can go ahead and start. I'll show you a couple of different techniques. My background is going to be this dark wood, so a dark stained look. So for a stained look, you'll want to have a glass of water handy, a little bit of a damp paper towel here. So I'm just taking a little bit of paint, just a little bit of paint with that paper towel on the damp paper towel. Maybe a little bit more paint than that, huh? And then you just blend that onto the wood. This is a nice technique because it dries very quickly, so if you're in a hurry or lack patience, this is a pretty good technique. And this works really well if you have smooth wood. If you have any rough areas of your wood, then maybe you just want to go with a heavier paint technique. So for the heavier paint technique, that's where you'll use your brush. You still want to dunk your brush in the water. Take most of the water back off if you can. And then we'll take our paint, just load it up onto the brush, and then just brush that right onto your board. You'll also want to get the edges. And these little tiny minis, these are basically shelf sitters. So you might not have hanging hardware with it, but you can set it up nicely on a shelf. So do paint your edges just so it looks nice while it's hanging wherever it's hanging. Okay, and here's the part where we practice patience. So now this board has to be completely dry before we go on to the next step. Because if we're going to stick our stencil to this next. And our stencil is a sticky vinyl stencil. And if we stick it down while this board is still wet, when we peel that stencil back up again, there's a chance that it could take some wood with it or some paint with it. So we want this board to be completely dry. So I'm going to blow dry this. All right, at this point, my background is almost completely dry. I want to show you a technique that is going to help with the antiquing look. So I have some gold here. Metallics work really well for this part. Kind of a dry brush. I'm taking most of the water out of the brush onto the towel. Now I just take a little tiny bit of gold. And that's just a little, okay? And now I'm putting the brush down and just like lightly dragging it. So this, I'm letting gravity do most of the work for me here. And this is a little small amount of paint at a time. And just dragging it across. So if you do this with white over brown, you're going to see it quite a bit. There, you can see how metallic-y this is. The metallic colors always work a little bit better if you put them over a dark color, so the metallic gold over brown can look really nice. So once again, this is going to have to dry. So I'll be blow drying this. Okay, at this point I have a dry board and I have my stencil. So to put the stencil on the board, I have three parts to my stencil. I have the transfer tape, which is the white tape part. The stencil itself, which in this case is a black part. Yours might be black or white or blue or whatever color. And then there's the backing. The backing you can tell because it has the grid. And this is the backing paper that we're going to remove in this step. Best way to do it is see if you can grab a corner, and you can usually fold it down and separate the edges a little bit. So all I'm doing is just grabbing a corner, and if you have a larger stencil with a lot of detail, you want to be pretty careful about this part. So this is the part we do low and slow, so hold that down. I have it kind of folded back, and I'm just peeling it low and slow. If your vinyl pulls up at any point, you just want to press it back down firmly and then keep going. So if your vinyl does stick to your backing and you just keep pulling, it could tear or stretch your vinyl, and that's going to be something that's hard to fix. So you want to be a little careful. So this one is coming up pretty nicely. Like I said, if it picks up any of the vinyl, if you see any of the black part up on the backing, then you just want to press that back down and see, there it is happening. So press it back down firmly and keep doing. And if you keep this folded and pull it back, that's going to minimize your chances of your vinyl pulling up. So there we go. And the backing, we can just throw that away. So now we have our vinyl, pretty sticky at this point. So we're going to flip it over and line it up on the board. If you're dealing with a standard size like an 11 by 16, the black part of your vinyl will line up almost exactly the same size as your board, so that really makes it a lot easier. On these smaller ones, we're mostly eyeballing it. So once you have it positioned where you want it, press it down firmly with your hand. Just press it down firmly and move on. So we're taking up the transfer tape now. This, again, just like taking the backing, you take a corner of it and you just peel it away. Same story here. If you get any vinyl pieces sticking to it, you'll want to press those back down firmly. All right. And that tape, that's garbage then. You can just throw that. And now this, you just want to press down your vinyl right around the edge of your shape. And if you have any rough wood, like right in here, I had that rough area of wood, so I want to go really lightly with the paint there so that I'm not forcing it under the vinyl so it'll spread out. So just pressing down the vinyl to try and get a tight seal. And then I'll add my color. So I have a little bit of white paint and I have my wedge sponge. So I'll just take a little bit of that paint and I'm just dabbing it so that it's even. Now keep it thin, all right, thin to win. Thin, light little coats of color. And just gently dab. Just working my way down the arrow. Remember that part there that I want to be careful for? Just lightly, lightly dab. And you're using only small amounts of paint at a time. Small amounts of paint are easy to control. If you start using heavier amounts of paint, then it's going to do what it wants, and it might not be what you want. So small amounts of paint. If it's not dense enough after the first run and you want it to be like a thicker white or whatever color you're working with, you can do a second coat, a second thin coat. That's the key. It has to be thin paint. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So I'll come back over to the first side and I'm working on my second coat now. Notice I'm not letting it dry. Okay, this is just like painting your wall. You want to take that tape off the wall while the paint is still wet. You don't want to let that dry. If you let your paint dry and then you peel your vinyl up, it may pull up some paint with it. So for best results, you want to peel up your vinyl while your paint is still wet. Okay, that is looking pretty good. Lightly in the center, pretty decent coverage on the outsides. So now here's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to pull up our vinyl. Go against the grain if you can. On these little boards, it's pretty darn hard because this is the grain, so I would want to be pulling this way. Not so easy on these little boards. All right, see how that comes up pretty well. Just go ahead and pull the Band-Aid off. Don't fuss over it too much, just pull it all off. You're never going to get the whole vinyl in one piece. So you can see right here, I've got a couple of little pieces left over in there, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. So if you got your kit from us, you probably got a tack, a push pin, and we called it a weeding tool. If you have anything better than this in your possession, use it instead. The tack can work, sure, but I wouldn't call it ideal. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting right under the edge of that vinyl and just lifting that up. Just right under the edge and lift it up. Okay, so that is looking pretty good. Here is my wood sign. So now if you're working with a larger wood sign and we already have the hardware on the back for you, do pay attention to which direction is up, because one of these directions will be the hanging side. So make sure you have it right side up. So here you go. Creatively Uncorked wood sign. Thanks for watching.